Hello everyone, I am Anubha Walia, Director in a leading training and executive coaching firm, Prisma Philosophy at New Delhi. In the previous unit, you have made yourself familiar with the words and phrases that are frequently used in the business world. And you will also must have observed, you may not find them in the common English dictionary also sometimes. In this section, you will also read about much more words and phrases when you will be reading in your books, and which you can actually use it in your business writing as well as in speaking. So what I'm going to cover today in this session, we'll understand the meaning of the recruitments, explain what is meant by public relation. We will also understand the phrase thinking out of the box, meaning of stakeholders, feedback, and price point. So as you must have witnessed in my previous session, you would have learned a few business terms and now you would have must have started using it also in your day-to-day life. Let me take it up now from the alphabet N. So let's start with negative equity. If the value of an asset financed using debt falls below the amount of the loan or a mortgage that is owed to the bank, it is called negative equity. It occurs when the value of the assets depreciates rapidly over the period of use, resulting in negative equity of the borrower. Negative equity shareholder, you will also see and witnessed, is similar concept, whereby the company incurs losses that are greater than the combined value of the payment made to the shareholder and accumulated earnings from the prior period. There are three scenarios of the negative equity which describe its implication to the concerned parties. It is common in the housing and automobile sector, as a house or a car is normally financed through some sort of debt such as bank loan or mortgage. The price of a house loan can decline due to drop in the real estate price, whereas the price of a car can fall due to rapid use. In both cases, result will be negative equity. A typical example of the negative shareholder equity is when you will see and observed that the significant dividend paid or made to the investor, which erodes the retained earning and make the companies to go into the negative zone. So let me revisit this again for you. A typical example of the negative shareholders equity is when the dividend payments are made to investors, which erodes the retained earnings and make the equity of the company to go into the negative zone. It is usually the sign of a distress for the company. When I say distress, it is a financial distress. The net worth is often used in place of negative equity. A person who has negative equity is said to have a negative net worth, which actually means that the person's liabilities exceeds the assets he owns. A common example of negative net worth is the student with an education loan. Although student loan enables the student acquire higher education, but until he gets a job with an emolument, he has a negative net worth. Let's take the second N word, net assets value, NAV. It is a method of measuring investment trust. NAV is the total number of the one's assets minus liabilities. When it is often associated with the mutual funds also and helps an investors determine if funds is overvalued or undervalued. So when we talk about the open-end funds, NAV is really crucial. NAV gives funds value that an investor will be entitled to at the time of withdrawal of the investment. In case of closed-ended fund, which is a mutual fund with a fixed number of units. Price per unit is determined by market and is either below or above the NAV. Non-performing assets, NPA, the loans and advances on which the principal is overdue and interest thereof has been paid for a certain period of time are known as NPA, which we call non-performing assets. This terminology is used by banks and financial institutions. In general, loans become NPAs when their outstanding is for 90 days or more, though some lenders use a shorter window in considering a loan or advances as NPA. Nominal interest rate. It refers to the interest rate before taking inflation into account. Nominal can also refer to the advertised or stated interest rate on a loan without taking into account any fee or compounding of interest. RBI, which is Reserve Bank of India, sets short-term nominal interest rate which form the basis for other interest rates charged by banks and financial institutions. Nominal interest rates may be held at artificially low level after a major recession to stimulate economic activity through a low real interest rate, which encourages, you will see, consumers to take out loans and spend money. A necessary condition for such stimulus measure is that inflation should be present or a near-term threat. During inflationary times, you will see the RBI may set nominal rate high. If the inflation level is overestimated, nominal interest rate may be too high. The resulting elevated level of interest rates may have serious economic repercussions as they tend to stall spending. Let's explore nominal value. Nominal value is also referred to as a face value or a par value, is the value shown on the face of a security certificate or instrument, including currency. The concept most commonly applies to stocks and bonds, but especially important to bond and preferred stock investors. Just to give you an example, suppose a company XYZ issues rupees 100 crores in bonds to fund the construction of a new factory. The bond matures in 20 years. If the company sells the bond in rupees 1000 increments, each bond certificate would have a nominal of rupees 1000 and the bearer of that bond would therefore be entitled to receive rupees 1000 from XYZ in 20 years. So, if the company also agrees to pay 5% annual interest on the bonds, the bearer of the XYZ company bonds would be entitled to rupees 50 per year in interest payment on each bond. Let's move to the price point. Price point is the retail price of a product, determined in such a way that it can compete with prices of similar product of other manufacturers. This price point may be changed depending upon the supply, and you will also see demand and competition. Price point is a point on a scale of possible price for a product. It can be understood as well as by looking at the following curve representing interrelationship between supplied items, demand and price. It can be seen from the graph if the supply decreases but demand increases, the price point will increase. On the other hand, if the supply increases but demand decreases, the price point will also decrease. So, depending on the market size, background of the customers, reputation of the manufacturer, whether it is branded or not branded, supply and demand price point is fixed. Thus, it is just not necessary for goods sales that product be sold at the cheapest price. Now, what is the difference between the price point and the price? Price point refers to a point on a hypothetical curve drawn on the basis of demand and supply. And whereas price is the actual price the product is sold at. Let's explore privatization. The sector having industries run by the government agencies is known as the public sector. If an enterprise or the industry is transferred from the public sector to the private sector, is called privatization. It may be a partial or complete. If the government sells its assets partly to a private party, it is a partial privatization. But if all the government held assets are transferred to the private individuals, it is complete privatization. This process is also termed as disinvestment. A detailed description on disinvestment has been given in the previous aspect which we talked. The objective of the privatization is to provide a strong base to the inflow of FDI. It also improves the quality of products, enhances competition, pushes up exports, lower up the price due to competition. And some companies have been given a special category of Navratna and Mini Ratna due to their export potentials. There are 6 methods of privatization: the public sale of share, public auction, public tender, direct negotiation, transfer of control of state or municipally controlled enterprise, lease with the right to purchase. Let's explore public relations. The way business organization and companies work towards, or in fact individual also who establishes a relationship with the public and media, is called public relation. In the age of global competition, it is imperative for the companies to create and maintain a positive image of their product among the target audience and develop a strong relationship with them. Different strategies needs to be followed for developing strong public relation. And some of them are which are used by the corporates, like press releases, newsletters, personal contacts, and in this current age of information technology, by using World Wide Web, which we also call it WWO. According to the Public Relations Society of America, public relation is a strategic communication process. It actually builds mutually beneficial relationship between organizations and the public. The world, you will see, in the business has to face fierce competition, and just to refrain the existing customers and to win the new ones, the business organization have to use PR in a very aggressive but in a judicious manner. So many organizations now seek to service of the PR specialist or the firms who represents and presents their products and services and their related operations in the best possible way. A positive public image attracts new customer and pushes up sales over the years to close relationship which has developed between PR and marketing. Let's explore the word recruitment. Recruitment is the process of hiring new employees in an organization. It is a multi-step process. The main step being the following, which is I'm going to share, has a starting with the identifying the hiring need. That's the most crucial one. Once we are able to identify the need, we write the job description. You must have heard the word JD. Then we advertise the position. Once the position is advertised, we scrutinize and shortlist the application received by the organization. If necessary, holding a written test is sometimes used by the corporates. Post that, interviewing the shortlisted candidates, followed by their background check, checking with the referees, and doing the final selection. Post the selection is done, we offer the selection letter and do the onboarding. Depending on the size of an organization, the respective inputs which I just mentioned, it's a process may be wholly or partly completed internally or outsourced to the outside firm which actually specializes in these categories. However, all recruitments are typically made in coordination with the HR. In fact, recruitment is a continuous process, and in many organizations, HR develops a pool of qualified applicants, and you will see that they are working with the different categories for the future human resource needs, even though the specific vacancies do not exist at that particular moment. So as soon as the managers, initiate an employee's requisition for a specific vacancy or an anticipated vacancy, the whole process is initiated. So you must have witnessed that recruitment's needs are of three types. First one is planned. Now when I say planned, these vacancies are basically arises due to planned expansion of the organization and retirement policy. The second one is anticipated. These vacancies arises due to anticipated movement of personnel which can be predicted by studying internal and external environment. And the third one is unexpected. These vacancies arises due to resignation, death, accident, illness, and so on. Let's understand the word self-reliant economy. Self-reliant economy as an individual ability to garner and hold economic resources in an excess of their basic need is ESR, which we say economic self-reliance. But this is a relative term. According to the various and the famous people, I would talk about Paul Godfrey. What he mentioned, ESR is also a context specific. What constitutes basic needs for someone in a developed country will differ drastically from someone in a developing country. But the core principle of economic development are the same throughout the world. Now let's emphasize on SRE. We call it self-reliant economy, which is a buzzword these days in Indian economy after the Prime Minister of India listed out 5 I's to make India a self-reliant economy. The intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure and innovation are of the utmost importance to make a self-reliant India. It emphasizes, and I would say the government intend to help the industry. Our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, added, if the industry takes 2 steps ahead, the government will take 4 steps to support it. The government has recently brought in major reforms in various sectors such as labor reforms, agriculture reforms, allowing private companies in strategic sector, commercial mining of the coals and so on. With these measures, the government is hopeful that the fundamentals of Indian economy will be more inclined towards the growth. Intent is defined as something you plan or mean to do. Thus, a strong desire supported by matching effort is the first thing for the SRE. The Rockefeller Foundation outlined the 5 characteristics of inclusive economy as a participation, equity, growth, sustainability and stability. An investment in an asset or an item acquired with the goal of generating income or appreciation. So the appreciation here refers to an increase in the value of an asset over a time. It concerns the outlay of the same assets today, time, money or efforts, in hopes of a greater payoff in the future that was originally put in. The infrastructure is an important prerequisite for the faster economic growth. You will see the important constituents of the infrastructure like roads, road transports, power, communication network, railways, ports, agriculture, irrigations, these are some important infrastructures which are there. But when I focus on the innovation, it is defined as the introduction of something new. Without innovation, there is not anything new. And without anything new, there will be no progress. Innovation is really the core reason for modern existence. The purpose of innovation is to come up with new ideas, technologies, and the increasing productivity to generate greater output with the same input. Let's explore stakeholders. A stakeholder in I would say any person, organization, social group or society that has a stake in the business. A stake means vital interest. Thus, any person or a group whose interests are affected by activities of business is a stakeholder. So, the main stakeholders are in the recent year you will see are investors, employees, suppliers, customers. But in the recent years, what I witnessed, the scope of stakeholders have actually broadened, and it is now included customers, community and government also. There are two types of stakeholders. One are internal and the another one is called external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders have a direct relationship with the business. For example, ownership, employees and investors. Whereas external stakeholders do not work with the companies directly but are affected in some way or the other by the business activities. Some examples, let me quote and give you here is external stakeholders are like suppliers, social groups, customers and the government. So if the government makes some rules about the environment pollution, the business has to take a corrective measure. Similarly, in a manufacturing unit creates a pollution, the social group may protest and thus become external stakeholder. Let's understand startups. The word startup or a startup. So when I say these two words, start -up or startup, one word, is used for a new business enterprise founded by one or more entrepreneurs with the objective to develop a new product or services to be launched in the market. So I am an entrepreneur. I am a startup. I have established training and executive coaching firm. So a typically startup is started with a modest capital which is pooled by the founders and family members. So I being the founder of Prisma Philosophy. So the word startup was for the first time used by Forbes magazine in 1976 in the sense of budding company. In 1977, the Business Week article included the line, an incubator for startup. And you will see the incubator for startup companies, especially in the fast growth, high technology field. Now, this term was used very extensively during the dot-com boom in the Silicon Valley. Initially, it was used for tech enterprises, but now it can be applied to any new set of business. A startup is typically associated with a new idea of business which is implemented in an unconventional office, workshop with a small number of employees. And nowadays you will find various startups working from home. Often the founders, owners work themselves without a formal hierarchy during the infancy of the startup. Let me give an example of the auto giant BMW, which was started in a garage in a small town in Bayern state of Germany. Microsoft founded by Bill Gates, Ford Motors founded by Henry Ford, McDonald's founded by Ray Kroc are some of the great examples of startups. Infosys example founded by Narayan Murthy and others, Flipkart by Bansal brothers. Mukesh Ambani's, we know how the Mahindra was founded by Mukesh Bansal and others. So we had Ola Cab founded by Bhavish Agrawal. These are some set of examples of Startup India. So startup is a risky proposition, and therefore first the founders have to prove the success chance of their concept to attract potential lenders and investors. Government of India has notified a scheme recently in 2019, I remember February 19th, known as Startup India Action Plan to support startup ventures in India. The startups that meet the definition as prescribed under the GSR notification, they can apply for recognition and avail the concession under this particular program. Now, after getting the recognition as a startup, it can actually apply for tax exemption under the Section 80I AC of Income Tax Act. And after getting the clearance from tax exemption, the startup can avail tax holiday for 3 consecutive years for one of its first 10 years since incorporation provided. So the entity is recognized startup. It is a private limited or a limited liability partnership company. It has incorporated after 1st April 2016. There is a stock market. Let's understand stock market. A stock market which can be defined as the collection of markets and exchange where buying, selling and issuance of share of publicly held companies takes place. Such financial activities are conducted through institutionalized formal exchange or over-the-counter, which we call it OTC marketplace, which operates under a defined set of regulation. While both terms stock market and stock exchange are used interchangeably, the term is generally a subset of the former. You will also see the stock exchange are the most important constituents of the capital market in any country. The major stock exchange in India is BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange. It is one of the 2 principal large stock exchange of India. Established in 1875, Bombay Stock Exchange is the oldest and the first stock exchange of Asia, was formerly known by the name of the Native Share and the Stock Broker Association. National Stock Exchange. NSE is one of the youngest stock exchange of India, which came into the picture in the year 1992. Nifty 50, the popular benchmark index in the Indian stock market, was introduced by NSE in 1995. Nifty lists top 50 companies which traded on the NSE stock exchange market. Then we have Calcutta Stock Exchange. Calcutta Stock Exchange is a regional stock exchange. We call it RSE, which is located at the Lyons Range, Kolkata, and is the 2nd oldest stock exchange in Southeast Asia. It was incorporated in 1908. So CSE is the 2nd largest stock exchange in India. We also have MSE, which is Metropolitan Stock Exchange. Now, when I say this is the exchange that was notified as a recognized stock exchange under the Companies Act by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs on the December 21, 2012. MSE offers a high-tech platform to trade in the capital market, futures and options, currency derivatives, debt markets, segment of the Indian market. Indian International Exchange, we call it India INX, which was opened in Jan 2017. India INX is India's first international stock exchange. It is a wholly owned subsidiary of BSE, that is Bombay Stock Exchange, and is located at the International Financial Services Center, which is GIFT City in Gujarat. There is also NSE IFSC Limited. NSE IFSC Limited, which was incorporated in 2016 in November, is a wholly owned subsidiary of the National Stock Exchange. It is located at the International Financial Services Center. We call it IFSC, GIFT City in Gujarat. The exchange is permitted to offer securities trading in any currency other than Indian rupee. After so much of financial words, let's explore something very phenomenal word which is called thinking out of the box. We say thinking outside the box. This is kind of a phrase. It is thinking out of the box or thinking beyond the box. Often used in the business world while planning a strategy means to think unconventionally, abandoning all preconception or from a new perspective or a proposed completely new approach to the problem. Thinking out of the box implies innovation, readiness to face challenge, which is considered a desirable quality in the business world. There are many inspiring stories of the men who changed the whole scenario of the business by thinking out of the box. To give you an example, Steve Jobs. He was fired by the board of directors of Apple and the company he founded. However, after his team developed Next, which is NEXT operating system, he went on to become CEO of Apple. We all are accustomed to do things the way we have been doing, but asking yourself why. Have we always done it that way? Can lead to a new approach and creative thinking. Sometimes the very act of explaining a complex problem in a simple way results in an innovative idea. Unique selling proposition, USP. It is of a company's product or services in its uniqueness which make it different from and better than its competitive similar offering. A strong USP can help the company attract and retain customers. If the market has already the product or services the company is going to launch, it has to think about USP in its product. It is the unique aspect of the product that energizes the marketing personnel to highlight reason why customers should choose their product and rather going for the product of the other company. To develop a USP, other companies' ads and marketing messages are analyzed carefully. Their USP, if necessary, are further studied and then company tries to distinguish its product from other products in the form of a slogan, or even sometimes you would have heard phrases or sentences. Charles Revson, founder of Revlon Cosmetic, phrased, "He sold hope, not makeup." Air India's USP is Maharaja. Sometimes airlines promises luxury while others offers low price. Neiman Marcus sells luxury, while Amazon's USP is the Earth's most customer-centric company. Jio's USP is affordable 4G LTE mobile network with innovative technology. So, if you will see in the last example, the USP actually combines low price with the innovation. So, these kind of examples you will see underscore the importance of USP. Now, there are 4 P's for the USP. Product characteristics, price structure, placement strategy, which is location and distribution, and promotional strategy. Now you will see that these 4 P's are actually kind of manipulated to get an optimum market position that sets its apart from its competitor. Let's hear the new word today, vocal for local. Recently, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi gave the slogan Vocal for Local, which means greater emphasis for the India-made self-made consumer goods. In fact, it is related to self-reliant economy, which I just emphasized some time back. Emphasizing on the self-reliant or Atmanirbhar India, the government has asked that products not just be made in India, but also for the promotion of local brands, manufacturing and supply chain. The idea for vocal for local clarion is to create more local brands and take those to the global arena. It is only possible with a very focused technology based companies that can be scaled up faster. It also implies that the quality of locally made goods should be high so that Indian brands can make a niche globally. So vocal for local can create a healthy, vibrant, startup ecosystem. Government of India announced a stimulus package for the startups which are perceived as the real promoters of vocal for local concept. These companies actually earlier did not receive any intellect support and technical know-how from the government, and hence their growth remains stunned. But the vocal for local would provide these small ventures with the opportunity to grow globally. Some of these companies with the proper handling and hand-holding can become a publicly listed companies and get acquired by some bigger international brands. Many words and phrases are used in the business world which may not find place in common English. So keep using them and I'm sure you will had a great learning. With that note, happy learning.